Good morning again, and welcome to a beautiful, sunny, freezing Melbourne day. During the last week, I had the chance to read an article in the latest Far East by Father Ed O'Connell, and he was talking about his NGO that he set up in Lima quite a few years ago, with the mission or the objective of educating or forming kids to know their rights and to be able to work for them, to attain them. And much of this meant coming to know and to read and to understand, to appreciate local authorities. And amongst those authorities principally would be the municipality. And to realize, as Jesus says, that quite often authorities can come to you in sheep's clothing, whereas underneath they are ravenous wolves. And so the young are invited to be aware that good authorities produce good fruit, whereas bad authorities, bad fruit. And Jesus says in his gospel, like a good tree only produces good fruit, and a bad tree, bad fruit. So be aware, don't be seduced by the good looks, by her good looks, or by his silver tongue, or by her credentials, or by his promises, but rather by the fruit they produce. And so I wanted to have a look at Jesus himself and see what were some of the fruits of Jesus' life, of his practice and his teaching. And I've come up with 4 principal ones that you've possibly heard me mention before. And the first one for Jesus is compassion. He's a man of compassion. He's a man whose heart is able to be disturbed by the situation of another, the adverse situation, obviously, of another. He can put himself in the shoes of someone who is suffering, who is hurting. Yeah? And many times Jesus was compassionate. And I want to have a look at some concrete examples of that. Jesus was, with his disciples, was heading for a village of Naim. And when they come towards the village, they are met by a large crowd of locals accompanying a widow for the burial of her only son. And Jesus, reading the situation very clearly, appreciates just how much that woman was going to suffer. Because in that society, a widow without children was totally vulnerable. And Jesus says, "Woman, don't cry." He stops the procession and he says to the young man, "Get up." And he sat up, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. He gave life to the son, and he gave life again to the mother. All because he was moved to act by compassion. And another one is when Jesus faced with lepers. And what does he do? He comes out and he touches them, which is totally against the law. Lepers were to be isolated, to live apart. But Jesus, moved with compassion for them, and releases them from their sickness and restores them to the life in their family and their community again. Beautiful. The fruit of Jesus' Spirit is compassionate action. And the second one is Jesus forgives. And as we know, Jesus, he sets people free from their shame or their guilt, but he also sets the offended person free from resentment or even hatred. and he sets people free. He forgives them. And a couple of examples of that are Jesus teaching us how to pray. And he says, when you pray, say, Our Father, etc. And in the middle of that, Jesus says, Father, forgive us our offences as we forgive others. In other words, the forgiveness we want to receive is in proportion to the forgiveness we offer. Forgiveness is a fruit of the truth, the love, the life of Jesus. And then there's a third one, which is healing. The number of times Jesus builds someone up. Jesus encourages someone, affirms someone who is maybe marginal, maybe down and out, whatever it be. Jesus says to fishermen, he says to a tax collector, follow me. Come with me. I accept you. I want you to be part of my mission. Follow me. And that is affirming. A concrete example, I think, of would be Matthew. He was a despised tax collector. And Jesus invites him to be an intimate friend of his and part of his mission. And the other one is when Jesus is confronted with the woman caught in adultery. And the pious members of the city are for stoning her because she has sinned. And Jesus says to her, listen, neither do I condemn you. Go in peace and sin no more. He doesn't deny that she has committed adultery, but he tries to heal her of the shame and the embarrassment in front of everybody else, and the abuse and the criticism of the pious ones of the society. And Jesus builds her up. Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Yeah. So we have compassion, we have forgiveness, we have healing, and a final one I want to mention is inclusion, which I think is so important for our society today. We are becoming more and more a society of them and us. Now, whether it's just around a football club, whether it's around a political party, whether it's around a religion, whether it's around something that's happening the other side of the world, we are dividing ourselves into them and us. And Jesus the whole time was we. He shared the table with everyone. He wasn't afraid to sit at table with tax collectors and prostitutes and Pharisees and high priests and so on. Jesus was very much for we, for us, for all of us. He was inclusive. And the two examples that I have there, Jesus, contrary to local custom, had women followers. There were women amongst his disciples. And none of the gurus at his time would have that. They would have just men. But Jesus included women. They were people. They had dignity. And he included them. And the other ones he included were the kids. Let the children come to me. Jesus included the kids who had no standing in that current society. And it's very like the mission that Ed O'Connell and his NGO, Warami Wasi, is implementing, practicing in Peru at the moment. It's to give the kids an understanding of, an appreciation of their rights, and of how to achieve those rights. And part of it is to be able to appreciate the authorities who do make the decisions for their local areas, the municipalities mainly, and to be able to see what is the fruit that they produce and they offer. So don't forget, for ourselves, good fruit is compassion. healing, forgiveness, and inclusion. Okay? God bless. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.